Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. So instead of going to a different Wendy's, Karen decided to be a fool and teach her kid that it's okay to treat people like crap. She taught him that stealing stuff is okay when you're mad. I guess you better start saving up bail money now. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Crazy Karen at Wendy's. So this happened a few weeks ago. I'd stopped by Wendy's to get some lunch, and there was a notice on the door stating that the Frosty machine was broken and that it would be fixed soon. I brushed it off and went in line to go order. I ordered my meal and go to sit down and wait for my order to be called. A few minutes goes by when this lady who appeared to be in her 30s dragging along her son who looked to be 4, maybe 5, and he was bawling. She was yelling and causing a scene. Here's how the following conversation went. Karen, where's my son's Frosty? Employee, as I told you, ma'am, at the order window, our Frosty machine is broken. Karen, then fix it. Employee, ma'am, I don't know how. Our mechanic will be here tomorrow morning to fix it. Karen, you're so selfish. It's my son's birthday. Employee, ma'am, I'm sorry about that, but there's nothing I can do. She then came over to me and demanded I fire him for being so selfish, and I responded with, sorry, ma'am, but I don't work here. I'm just waiting on my food. Also, I was surprised by how calm the employee was, but Karen was not done yet. She proceeded to get behind the counter and stole the sweet tea dispenser and proceeded to scream, "That's what you get!" and drove off. The employee just stood there shocked. They called my order in the next few minutes. And our second story. Friend wants me to co-sign, but only wants the expensive options. I have this coworker that asked me to co-sign for a car loan. She'd been having car issues for months, and honestly, her car's dying. The managers have threatened her job if she misses any more work. I've offered her rides in the past. I don't want to co-sign anything, as I believe it'll be on me. I don't want the stress for the duration of her loan. So I've offered to help her find a car loan suited for bad credit. But nope. They'll only let her have a $5K loan, not the $15 to $20K loan she wants. Girl, your current car's worth $800. A $5,000 car's a step up. Every day at work, she's begging for me to co-sign that more expensive car loan. No, I'm not going to do it. My car isn't even worth that much. Then she comes up with stories about how a small sedan isn't going to fit her needs, and she needs a SUV for the future kid she's going to have. Then how that car's too low to the ground. Even if I would have even thought about co-signing that loan, she's making me mad. I've talked to my manager that they basically laughed at how crazy she is and put me on opposite shifts. I won't respond to her calls or texts, even if she's asking for a ride, because the entire trip, the girl's describing the SUV she wants. Just take the car. My goodness. A firm no and I don't want to are the only answers needed to be given in this situation. And our next story. They say you can't put a price on happiness, but it cost me $250,000, and it was worth every penny. My late husband was in a car accident his senior year in 1986 and got a settlement of $30K he could access at 18. He was a gearhead and wanted to buy a Corvette, but his mom didn't like that idea, so she made him a deal. If he bought the car, he'd have to pay rent and storage for his other cars, or could buy property and stay home rent-free as long as he wanted. So at 18, we started looking at property, and he bought 10 acres for $5,000. We intended to build there at some point or sell it later on. In the early years, we would have massive ragers. There was no one around to bother, and it was great. Eventually, people bought and built on the lots around us, and zoning laws changed to allow one house per acre, so there were several houses, but it was still rural. And a few of us had large, empty acreage the kids would use to ride their dirt bikes. We didn't care. Let them have fun. About 15 years ago, another new house went in, and it was right on the property line. They hadn't even finished construction on the house when the wife began calling to demand I take some trees down because they blocked her view. The funny thing was, the view they blocked was from the RV they were living in. Once they moved into the house, they wouldn't even be near those trees, so I said, sorry, but no, I'm not cutting the trees. She wasn't happy. And over the next couple years, she called to complain about all sorts of stupid crap and the noise of the kids on dirt bikes. Hell, she even got mad at people riding their horses because they made her dogs bark. One spring day, I drive out there and notice the stream that ran across my property and theirs had been dammed on mine and diverted on my land about 50 yards from their property line, which sent it along the dirt road that went down a hill and up the other side, creating a pond where it was blocked, and another at the bottom of the road, preventing me from accessing the majority of the property. Now, I know it was their doing because the previous fall/winter, she'd called to complain my stream was causing her property to flood. First off, it wasn't my stream, and her property didn't flood. In winter months, the stream naturally got larger. It flowed downhill and kept in its banks for decades. Their lot was originally heavily wooded, and they cleared all the trees, and I could tell they'd done a bunch of grading. So if they had water issues, that was their doing, not mine. Anyway, I went home, and the following weekend, we grabbed the small backhoe and a couple of friends to unblock the stream. We hadn't even unloaded it before we heard her screaming, and the cops showed up. They were unsure if they should stop us because our state is pretty environmentally conscious and there are strict wetland laws. The cops didn't know if we were rerouting the stream or if they had. I completely understand where they're coming from. And I knew this could happen, so not only did I bring pictures to show how the stream had been, but one of our friends was an official at the DOE. He was able to explain the law and that we legally needed to put the stream back. We couldn't do much about the pond except wait for it to dry out, but we sent the stream back down its original channel. Of course, when it got to their freshly graded land, it had no channel to follow, and yeah, it did flood their yard. Unfortunately for them, there happened to be that DEO official who felt it was his duty to issue them a citation for diverting and illegally altering the stream. They ended up having to put the stream bed back and revegetate with native plants and shrubs in a 25-foot buffer zone, which took away a portion of their yard, pay us damages, and got a huge fine. As the spring and summer progressed, the kids on dirt bikes discovered the pond. By this time, it's 8 to 18 inches deep, and they are loving riding through it. So instead of just riding through, they spend hours in that area, much to the annoyance of the neighbor. She calls the police multiple times, but the kids would either be gone or say they have permission to be there, so the police call us and we say, yep, let them ride. Now, we did have concerns about liability if they got hurt, but we liked pissing her off, so we took the risk. Not the best idea, and thank God no one ever did that we knew about. A couple years go by. She'd learned to text because we ignored her calls when she has something to complain about. I make my annual spring visit and notice there are 23 large cedar and fir trees cut down. 5 have been cut up, and a path leads directly to their full woodshed. I was pissed. This isn't something I can just fix, and you don't F with my trees. I called the police, and their excuse was that firewood was their sole source of heat, and they needed the wood. They cut so many that it would dry out over the next couple of years. They get another no trespassing order, the stream one had expired, and charged with theft and vandalism. It took a couple years, but they ended up having to pay $10,000 for each tree they cut down, so that was a nice plus. We sold 15 of the trees and made another $45,000. They were pissed, to say the least. Life goes on, and we still got texts every time she heard a dirt bike, horse go by, or whatever irritated her on any given day. We started having summer campout parties over the next few years, and she always called the police or fire department. Of course, we never got cited because we're not stupid and didn't break any laws. Sadly, my husband died suddenly, and eventually I decided it was time to sell because I wasn't going to build a house there, so I listed the property for $1 million, which was the market rate at the time. Remember, it was 10 acres, and you can build 1 house per acre. Of course, anytime people went out there, she'd flag them down and tell them it flooded and all sorts of nonsense. She didn't want anyone to build or be there. I should have renewed the second trespass order, but it expired right around the time my husband passed, and it just wasn't important at that moment. Developers were not bothered, and we did get a few offers under ask I was happy with, but I really wanted to sell it to an individual who wanted to build a single home, just being stupid and sentimental. My agent wasn't happy, but understood. One day he calls me with an offer that's much less than any of the others, and they wanted to do an owner-carried contract for 3 years with a balloon payment to pay me off at the end of the 3 years. It's a couple who wanted to meet me out there. I didn't have anything going on the upcoming Saturday, so I said I'd meet them with the understanding that I really wasn't interested in carrying the contract and the price was too low. We figured they were hoping to change my mind, and we were hoping they would come in with a better offer. They got there before me, and when I arrived, the bee is there telling them how bad the property is. I parked on the main road and was walking in, so none of them even knew I was there. As I approached, two little kids come flying up on dirt bikes. She comes unglued, grabbed a rock and threw it at them. Came nowhere close to hitting them. The guy immediately starts yelling at her and tells her to get the F out of there. It scares her and she left. He sees me and begins to apologize, but I stopped that and thanked him. We started talking and he explained part of the reason they wanted this specific property was because they had two young boys who rode motocross and he loved the trails, plus he wanted to build a track for them. When he showed me where, I knew he was my buyer. I took a $250,000 loss on the sale and carried the contract just despite that B. While that is a huge sum, remember we paid $5,000 for it and got almost $300,000 for the trees and another $20,000 for the nonsense with the stream, plus enjoyed the property for almost 30 years. And I got the interest on the contract and the balloon payment, so it wasn't like we really lost out. Plus, knowing the bee was going to be miserable for years to come, you just can't put a price on that. I sold it 6 years ago and still go out a couple times a year just to check it out. They've built a beautiful house at the farthest point from the bee, and there's a huge track up by her place. She still sends me nasty texts, and I should probably block her, but it makes me smile each time knowing she's still pissed. Well worth the loss, and I know my late husband would approve. He always knew I was a petty bee. Just like a good chess match. Well played. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.